Hello and welcome again to CTRL+F, the NSI Cyber and Tech Center's podcast. This season, we are bringing you a series of sessions from one of the nation's leading cyber events, the National Cyber Innovation Forum. My name is Andrew McClure, the president of the National Cyber Innovation Forum, and in this episode, we continue into part 2 of a conversation I moderate with the Associate Deputy Secretary at the Department of Energy, Alex Fitzsimmons, and the Executive Director at the National Security Agency, Darren Turner. Stay tuned for more conversation examining how the United States is working across the interagency to confront strategic competition and evolving threats and advance America's technological edge.
Darren, I want to turn to this idea of the public-private partnership and where you can work with industry. So just a few sessions ago, we had Ms. Sutton from the Department of War talking about the need to work with industry, not just on defense, but also on offense. And so if we can play that or pull on that thread a little bit more and where those areas of collaboration might lie over at the National Security Agency, can you help us see or understand where you see the greatest opportunities of risk of the incorporation of AI, not just for defense, but also for offense?
Yeah, so the first thing, that's a great question. The first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that a good defense is a strong offense. And so working with the Cyberspace Collaboration Center and its ability to work with industry and ensuring that our networks are up to speed in their own ability to basically defend themselves. We also offer services for those small and medium-sized companies that might need protective DNS, or they might need red teaming automation capabilities on the edge for sensor perspective. So that ability in and of itself has grown fourfold in just the last 3 years. So to where we're now working with over 1,900 companies, which is really, really cool. But then you have to look at it from an AI perspective. And the AI Security Center that we've also put together is really about how are you going to help identify the responsible aspects of being able to utilize that. So it becomes very much easier to write a signature to find out if someone's doing something nefarious that they're not supposed to, because we know what they are supposed to do from a security perspective. So quite literally, when you look at those two together, that is the primary aspect. Now, one more item associated with that, and that is we start to work towards our understanding of how the models are working. It gives us the application layer necessary to understand what the next steps are going to be. And if we understand the next steps, we can get in front, because the advantage of understanding and utilizing AI, either for a defensive measure or an offensive measure, really starts with securing your networks against any application that you can possibly do. And that's where we're really driving our resources and our efforts.
Yeah, again, reflecting back on one of the other panels, I see Alexi here in the auditorium, and Mr. Bullsale had mentioned the potential now to support, through some of the foundational models, better OT security practices. So Alex, thinking on that and reflecting on the comments that were made, there's also opportunities to really apply a lot of, put a lot of the arrow behind capabilities here to have language optimized models for POCs, different OT systems operating really on the grid in much the same way that a lot of our testing may have been process slowed and had been otherwise inadequate. So Alex, can you talk a little bit about some of the collaboration that you have ongoing with some of the national labs that you also oversee, and if there's any potential for support, technology transfer, or work there to help support your mission as well?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned, DOE manages the 17 national laboratories. They all have distinct missions, sometimes complementary missions. We in CSER work with several of them to strengthen the security and resilience of the energy sector. I mentioned Citrix, which is a multi-lab effort supply chain testing program. It's one of our crown jewel capabilities within CSER. I would also say a couple other programs that we've recently stood up, one in partnership with our colleagues at DOW. This was in the President's FY26 budget request. It's called Project Armor. So it's a recognition that you have 16 critical infrastructure sectors. Energy sector, biased, but energy sector is the most critical for the reasons I mentioned earlier, because it enables all the other ones. Within a subset of the energy sector, you have defense critical energy infrastructure. So you're thinking about all of the privately owned and operated energy infrastructure that supports the DOW and the DOE nuclear security mission. Vast majority of energy infrastructure in the United States is privately owned and operated. So think about DOW facilities. They're not islanded microgrids. They are largely connected to, as I mentioned, the privately owned and operated energy system. So we've started this collaboration with DOW. I think we're working closer with our colleagues at war than we ever have before. It is a complementary parallel effort to rapidly identify, assess, and harden defense critical infrastructure, both within the fence and outside the fence. So I had the privilege of joining the Secretary of the Army last week at Fort Bragg. He held a defense critical infrastructure summit that had interagency partners, including CISA and myself, DOE. We talked about how we can further strengthen our collaboration, because a lot of the energy industry partners that are supplying these critical national security missions, some of them are very sophisticated, large companies that have whole teams of cyber experts and security operations centers and all of that. And then some of them are like rural municipalities that maybe have one person working on IT, but they're expected to defend their networks against nation-state threat actors, especially because of the customers that they're serving. So we need to be able to identify where the vulnerabilities are, both cyber and physical vulnerabilities, and work collaboratively between the energy industry and the federal government to strengthen that infrastructure that's strategically positioned to support our future needs.
Yeah, we've heard DCI come up a few times on this conversation. At the beginning of the day with Director Anderson, talked about that very trip. And we also had Principal Cyber Advisor to Secretary Driscoll, Brandon Pugh, also here on stage just a few sessions ago. So congratulations on the work that you're doing down in North Carolina and across the country on that. And Darren, pulling that back, one of the other things we've heard from another prior session was from the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Ben Coleman, and he brought up manpower and the ability to man, train, and equip the workforce from a service perspective, but it's also relevant across the NSA, Department of War, Department of Energy, and all of government. So, and it's a challenge that many of the organizations represented here also feel, and that's the ability to hire, retain, recruit the right people. So at the National Security Agency, do you see the mission and the workforce changing, evolving, or adapting, given a lot of the developments we've seen across AI, whether it's making your employees more efficient, doing things like language translation, really good at analysis of documents and automated generation tools and the such?
Love the question. There's a couple things about that really strike home. First and foremost, anytime we can get young or talent, however way, on the mission is a good thing, because once they touch mission, they don't want to leave mission. And so right up from the front, our ability to be able to do that is first and foremost, and it's paramount. The second thing is there's just a lot of things you can do at the National Security Agency that you can't do legally out in public. And when I talk about mission, that's what I'm talking about. Our abilities to either do, as Alex described on the defensive capabilities for critical infrastructures and identifying the ecosystem associated with that and what the signatures are, it's how do you then train the individuals to come forward? There's a couple ways we've been able to be successful. We've changed with our community outreach within the individual academia perspective. So we start, in some cases, pretty young in the high school range, and then up through the individual colleges. We've done the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center that I mentioned earlier, and its ability to bring forward. We've worked through CRADAs to bring other academic institutions online. And it's all a way to get people influenced and assigned and aware of the mission that we work on. Because it is easily the best non-describable data point that I can pull out that is once someone sees mission, once someone operates on mission, and it's very similar. We've seen that with the testing of models and what we're in the process of doing. The fact of the matter is they don't want to stop. They want to continue to work forward, and that's been the driving force on how we get our ranks up. Last thing I would say on that is all of what I've discussed as far as in the technological realm, from the Cyberspace Collaboration Center, the AI Security Center, working on an offensive or defensive manner, only matters if you can have the manpower, to your point, to be able to operate that capability. And I think we are well on our way to increasing that capability, which goes all the way back to your resource question at the beginning.
Well, mission matters. It sounds like we may have heard that in the opening remarks, whoever delivered those. So it's very important to find the right people and talent and not just the right process and technology. And Alex, I want to turn to you again because you talked about the threats facing the energy sector. And so you released several months ago a cybersecurity strategy for CESA. Can you walk us through the elements of that strategy and how you see that enhancing the mission to protect critical infrastructure across this country?
Yeah, sure can. So thank you for teeing that up. Yes, after President Trump's Cyber Strategy for America came out, CESA published its first ever strategic plan. And for those of you who don't know, CESA is a relatively new office in the federal government. It was created during the first Trump administration under then Secretary Perry as a recognition that the energy sector is under unique threat, serves a particularly important role to the national economy and modern life. And so it deserved to have its own office and the CESA mission is truly unique. It is the only office in the entire federal government that is solely dedicated to strengthening the security and resilience of the entire energy sector. They have different offices that are involved in different technology verticals, like we have an office of electricity that only focuses on the bulk power system. We have an office of nuclear energy or fossil fuels, etc. But CESA focuses on security and resilience of the entire system, which is interconnected among itself and then also between other critical infrastructure sectors. So having our own office helps facilitate our interactions with telecom, with transportation, all the other sectors that are interdependent with energy. So the way I describe the CESA mission, the way it is explained in the strategic plan, is that our foundational responsibility is to provide timely and actionable information to the energy sector. We do that through a variety of programs. We have the Energy Threat Analysis Center, a multinational lab effort that's primarily based at the National Lab of the Rockies in Colorado, where we have cleared intelligence community partners working alongside cleared industry partners to rapidly assess and disseminate actionable threat information to the energy sector. That's our fundamental responsibility. That timely and actionable information helps inform the development of world-class cyber and physical technologies so that the energy sector can stay at the cutting edge of new technology. That threat information and those technologies help us secure and harden critical energy infrastructure with an emphasis now on defense critical energy infrastructure. All of that hardening helps the energy sector prepare to respond and recover from cyber and physical incidents. So CSER is not just the cyber office, it's also the emergency response office for the department. We're the sector risk management agency for the energy sector, ESF 12 function under FEMA. And so we assist the energy sector for various cyber, physical, weather-related incidents like Winter Storm Fern, as I mentioned earlier. And so all of that preparation, response, and recovery effort then helps us provide more timely and actionable information to the energy sector. So that is the continuous loop of activities that CSER conducts on a day-to-day basis. It all feeds one another. It all supports our effort to continue to strengthen the security and resilience of the U.S. energy sector.
Darren, we heard throughout the day from various industry partners who were up here about how AI or innovations are changing the way in which they develop code, push out product, think about hiring team and serving their customers. And we've also heard from their government counterparts also talking about the deliberate processes that you just mentioned of, how AI may be transforming workflows, and especially at an intelligence organization when you have a deliberate process for intelligence and analysis. But how is AI changing the way the national security thinks about the way to confront adversaries? Are we seeing our adversaries also make use of tools and capabilities that require us to be either more front-leaning, and what should we do as a response?
So, great question, and one that requires a more fulsome answer in a different audience, if you will. But what I would start off by saying is unquestionably yes. The ability to see and identify different signatures, different ways of processes of how to attack a problem, how to see a problem, how to optimize the resources on a problem. These are all elements associated with the answer to your question. And quite frankly, we are seeing different possibilities, but there's one thing that certainly continues to come up, and that's the quality control of the actual resources and capabilities. How often do you do the QC check? To what level? Is it a manual QC check of what you've identified on what you're expected? Is it an automatic QC of an automatic process, if that makes sense? All of those are elements that are at play. But it is being looked at. We do know unquestionably that if we can harness the power of AI before any number of adversaries has that capability, we will really take a leap forward in our advantage and our capabilities in this space because it's an arms race de facto that we can't afford to lose.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Alex, I know we've got about a minute left here, so just to give you a thought here, if you wanted to either react or give us some parting comments.
Sure, yeah, I just appreciate everyone's interest in this topic. I think, with a lot of these cyber discussions feel like don't often include operational technology and critical infrastructure. We're very focused on IT, and I think all that matters, but for me, I've dedicated my career to energy, and the reason why I got into cyber later, and the reason why I got into cyber later is because I started to understand how important the cyber resilience is to the energy sector, which is the foundation of modern life. And so the two, we have to find ways to build bridges between what are two very different communities of people who work in cyber and people who work in critical infrastructure, especially energy. So if that's one takeaway I would have, and that's what I've been trying to do, is I've had the privilege of serving in this acting undersecretary role and the cyber office lead for CSER office, is try to bridge the gap between these communities because the scale and speed of the threats that we face require us to all work together. And so really looking forward to continuing to do that with hopefully all of you.
Well, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Darren. Please join me in showing our appreciation.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks to Hannah Haynes, Keelan Wolf, Claude Jennings, and the entire NSI CTC team in helping us produce today's episode. Be on the lookout every Monday and Wednesday for more sessions from the National Cyber Innovation Forum. If you like what you heard, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks again.